Sara was 38 years old when she admitted, for the first time out loud, that she hated her job. Not disliked, not found challenging in a way that could be reframed as growth. Hated. A petty, specific, quiet, exhausting hatred that had been building for 11 years, one ordinary Tuesday at a time, until it had become so much a part of her daily experience that she had stopped noticing it as a feeling and started experiencing it as simply the temperature of her life. She was a corporate attorney. She had built this career deliberately, over years of law school, debt, and long nights, and a specific kind of ambition that had once felt like the truest thing about her. At 26, becoming this version of herself had felt like an achievement worth every sacrifice it required. At 38, sitting in her office on a Thursday evening reviewing a contract she found no meaning in, for a client she did not particularly respect, she thought a sentence that frightened her. "I don't know how to be anyone else now." If any part of this is sounding familiar so far, stay with me. This story goes somewhere worth arriving at. And if you want more stories like this one waiting for you, the subscribe button is right there. It costs nothing and it means everything to a channel like this one. Now, back to Sara. The thought had a weight to it that surprised her. 12 years of law school, of bar exams, of climbing toward partnership, of building an identity around being someone who succeeded at something difficult and respected. All of that sat behind her like a long bridge she had crossed, and the thought of turning around and walking back across it felt, in that moment, more frightening than continuing to hate her days for another 20 years. This was the specific trap Sara had built for herself without realizing she was building it. She had told herself, for years, a version of a story that felt reasonable. "I have already invested so much. I am too far in to change course now. What was I supposed to do? Waste 12 years of work?" The story felt like wisdom. It felt like maturity. It felt like the responsible way to think about a life that could not simply be reorganized on a whim. But underneath the story was a simpler and more painful truth that Sara had not let herself look at directly. She was not staying because leaving would waste the past 12 years. She was staying because leaving meant admitting, to herself and to everyone who had watched her build this career, that the 12 years had led her somewhere she did not want to be. The past was already spent. That part could not be undone regardless of what she did next. But she had convinced herself that continuing to spend her future in the same direction was somehow protecting the value of the past, when in fact it was only compounding a cost that had already been paid. Her friend Maya, who had made a significant career change of her own 5 years earlier, moving from finance into teaching, had noticed Sara's exhaustion building for a long time before Sara said anything about it directly. They were having dinner on a Friday when Sara finally said the thing she had been avoiding saying. "I think I need to leave law," she said, and then immediately, before Maya could respond, "But I can't. I'm 38. I have 12 years in this. What would I even do? I'd be starting from nothing at an age when everyone else is already established." Maya was quiet for a moment. She said, "Can I tell you something my father told me before I made my own change?" "I don't think I ever told you this part." Sara nodded. Maya said, "I was terrified, the same way you are now. I told my father almost exactly what you just told me. Too far in, starting from nothing, too old to begin again." "What did he say?" Sara asked. Maya said, "He told me about a river near the town where he grew up. It had been flowing the same course for as long as anyone could remember, cutting through a particular valley, following the path it had carved for itself over centuries. Then one year, after a series of unusually heavy storms, a landslide blocked the river's path completely. The water that had flowed one direction for centuries suddenly had nowhere to go. For a while, the water simply pooled. It had no course. It did not know, in any sense, that water can know things, which way to move. But water does not stay still forever. It found the lowest point in the terrain around the blockage, and it began to carve a new path. Slowly, at first, then with increasing confidence, as the new channel deepened. Within a few years, the river had established an entirely new course. It reached the sea by a different route than it had used for centuries. "And here is the thing my father told me that I want to tell you now," Maya said. The river did not arrive at a worse sea because it took a new path. It was still the same river, made of the same water, carrying the same essential nature. It had simply found a different way to get where it was always going. Sara sat with this. "The years I already spent building the old channel," she said slowly, "weren't wasted. They were just the path I used to get here, to this moment, where I get to decide if the channel still makes sense." Maya nodded. The water that flowed for centuries in one direction was not wrong to have flowed that way, she said. It simply reached a point where the old path was blocked, and it had to decide whether to sit still forever or find a new way to the same sea. If you have ever felt exactly what Sara is feeling right now, like you are too far into something to change direction, I want you to do one specific thing before this story finishes. Drop a comment with just one word. The thing you've been telling yourself is too late to change. You don't have to explain it, just name it. Sometimes writing it down, even in a comment box, is the first small crack in the wall. Sara went home that night and did not make any dramatic decision. She did something smaller and in some ways more difficult. She let herself, for the first time in years, actually imagine what she wanted instead of law, without immediately shutting the thought down with the practical objections that usually arrived within seconds. She had always loved working with her hands. She had taken a woodworking class in her 20s before law school consumed every available hour, and had loved it with a simplicity and purity that nothing in her legal career had ever matched. She sat with this memory for a long time. She did not quit her job the next morning. She was not reckless, and the story would be less true to how real change actually happens if she had been. Instead, she started small. She found a woodworking studio nearby that offered evening classes. She signed up for one class on a Tuesday, telling herself it was simply a hobby, nothing more, no pressure attached. She went. The first evening, standing at a workbench with a piece of raw wood in front of her, she felt something she had not felt in longer than she could accurately measure. A kind of quiet, absorbed attention that had nothing to do with billable hours or client expectations or the particular exhaustion of practicing a kind of law she had stopped believing in. She kept going, every Tuesday, then twice a week. Then she began staying late at the 12 studio on weekends, working on pieces that had no client and no deadline, and existed purely because she wanted to make them. 18 months later, she was still practicing law, but she had also, alongside it, quietly built something new. A small woodworking practice on the side, initially just for herself, then slowly for friends who wanted pieces made, then for a widening circle of people who found her work through word of mouth. She did not leave law in a single dramatic moment. The river, as Maya's father had said, did not abandon its old channel overnight either. It carved the new path gradually alongside the old one, until eventually the new path carried more of the water than the old one did. 2 years after that Friday dinner with Maya, Sara reduced her legal practice to part-time. A year after that, she stepped away from law entirely, running her woodworking business full-time, doing work that she approached each morning with an eagerness she had not felt about her career in over a decade. Her father, Robert, who had been quietly worried throughout the transition, watching his daughter's careful, secure legal career give way to something less certain, visited her studio for the first time about 2 years into the change. He walked through the space slowly. He picked up one of her finished pieces, a simple wooden bowl with a grain pattern that caught the light in a way that felt almost alive. He was quiet for a while. Then he said, "I was scared for you when you told me you were doing this." "I know," Sara said. "I'm not scared anymore," he said, "watching you work, right now, in this room. I have never seen you look like this. Not once, in all your years of law. Not on the day you passed the bar. Not on the day you made partner. Sara felt something in her chest loosen, a tightness she had been carrying so long she had stopped noticing its presence. "I found the new path," she said. "It took a while, but I found it." Her father nodded. "The river always finds the sea," he said, "eventually." She thought about the 12 years in law. She did not think of them as wasted anymore. She thought of them as the old channel, the path she had needed to travel in order to arrive at the landslide, the blockage, the moment that forced her to discover there was another way forward that had been available all along, waiting for her to have the courage to carve it. She was 41 years old now, doing work that felt, every single morning, like something she had chosen rather than something she was trapped inside of. She still thought sometimes about the woman she had been at 38, sitting in her office, believing she was too far in to change course. She understood that woman completely. She did not judge her. That woman had been doing her best with the story she believed at the time. But she also knew something that woman had not yet learned. It is never too late for the river to find a new path to the same sea. The years spent in the old channel are never wasted. They are simply the water learning, patiently, persistently, which direction it was always meant to flow. If this story moved something in you tonight, if there's a version of yourself waiting on the other side of a change you've been too afraid to make, do one thing before you close this video. Subscribe so the next story finds you when you need it. And if you're comfortable, tell us in the comments what your river is trying to carve right now. Someone reading it might need to hear that they're not alone in it.